family, it's time for a true look at your world. Let's get hooked up for Pack Therapy. Here's your hosts, Tim Donnelly and Graham Hill.
Welcome into another edition of Pack Therapy. I'm Tim Donnelly, joined by Graham Hill, as always. And the NC State men's basketball team almost, so close, pulled off the 3-game get-back win streak that I requested from them. But before we get there, I'm going to start. I know it's an election year, so we're going to talk a whole bunch of politics. No, I'm kidding. But what I will do is make a little stump speech, a little campaign speech. What in the heck is going on that Torrey Holt is not a Pro Football Hall of Famer? Now, I'm just going to get it all out there, and then we can move on. He has the most receiving yards in a decade in NFL history, and he's big part of one of the best offenses in NFL history, one of the most influential offenses in NFL history. The longevity is there, the stats are there, the comparisons are there. When you compare his stats to the other stats of Hall of Famers, he appears favorably. He did everything the right way. He mentors, this is not a knock on Andre Johnson, okay? I actually believe this class should have had both Andre Johnson and Torrey Holt. Could be a knock on someone like Dwight Freeney. Could be a knock on some of the other members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But the Pro Football Hall of Fame messed themselves over by not including wide receivers for a long time. And standing on this era is so much more pass happy. These wide receiver numbers are not as impressive. So now there's a logjam. There's Steve Smith Sr. for the Panther fans out there. There's Andre Johnson, who got in this year. There's Reggie Wayne, who will get in eventually. There's Torrey Holt, who I believe should have been number one on the list. There's more names coming. Larry Fitzgerald's going to be there in the not too distant future. You have to put 2 wide receivers in almost per year for the next 3 or 4 just to get back to even, or else you're going to have deserving, over-deserving, over-qualified Hall of Famers like Torrey Holt on the outside looking in. He's now, on his 5th or 6th year ballot, and that's not what he should be, right? Julius Peppers is a first ballot Hall of Famer. That is what he should be. And even though this is an NC State podcast, and I know that the UNC fans are like, yeah, just call it what it is. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he should be. Torrey Holt is a first 2 or 3 ballot Hall of Famer. He has absolutely no business being 5 and 6 ballots in and not in the Hall of Fame as of yet. And that's not because this is an NC State podcast. I do know I'm playing to the preaching to the choir here, right? This is everybody in agreement, but Torrey Holt needs to be in the Hall of Fame. If he's not in next year, I say we revolt. We riot.
We boycott.
We join forces, and I don't know how you boycott the Hall of Fame, but we find a way how to, and we make them feel it.
This is why I love working with Tim Donnelly, ladies and gentlemen. We've been working together for 7 months now.
Yep.
I think it's the quarterback in him. He just came in here and threw an audible right off the – I thought we were going to get right into NC State basketball, NCAA tournament hopes, da-da-da-da-da. But no, I mean, I like it. This is why we have Pack Therapy, to help you fans process again.
I think I needed it.
Torrey Holt getting left out of the NFL Hall of Fame.
I really thought I needed it. The only thing, and I saw this online, and I don't believe it's the right thing to do, but it could be cool now for State fans, is if somehow Phillip Rivers and Torrey Holt end up going in together, and then it becomes just a state weekend, right? Then it just becomes a party. You wear your state gear and you go to the Hall of Fame game and have all those sorts of fun things. I don't think that's what they're trying to do, by the way. I don't think it's like, oh, well, they're thinking of how cool it would be. No, I think it's could be a silver lining on a gross misjustice. Right, a gross miscalculation of Torrey Holt's Hall of Fame credentials could end up with maybe the greatest NC State Hall of Fame weekend of all time.
Is it fair to say that'd be the NC State way? When you say an NC State weekend, we're not talking about an ACC championship. We're not talking about an ACC tournament win. We're not talking about any sort of championship. Instead, it's 2 really good historic football players that came through your program getting into the Hall of Fame together on the same weekend. That's the NC State way. That's the NC State way.
And one of them being disrespected in the process, right? It's Torrey Holt going in that late would still, it would be an awesome weekend where NC State players are unbelievably celebrated, right? Rivers and Holt, but still there would be the chip on the shoulder of like, this should have happened 5 years ago, which it should have. So I just wanted to start with that. I mean, it's called Pack Therapy, right? That was more for me. I needed to get some things off my chest. Now let's talk basketball. 67-64 loss to Pitt. It was that close to completing the trifecta that I requested of them here on this podcast. 3 games ago, they were coming off 3 straight losses, ugly losses. We don't have to dive into it. But they had Miami at home. They had, who was it? It was Georgia Tech at home, and then they had Pitt at home. And it was over essentially a week. And I said, if you win all 3 of those, not 2 of the 3, not if you dominate one and you look good in the others, but if you won those 3, we could talk about getting back into the NCAA tournament run, finishing on a hot streak that could change some opinions. They worked their way all the way back up into the top 4 in the ACC tournament through the first 2 wins, or in the ACC standings in the first 2 wins, and then they lost by 3 to Pitt.
They were 2 offensive rebounds away and 9 missed free throws away from accomplishing the goal that we asked of them.
The free throws are the ones that stand out to me. If they just shot their season average, I'm not asking them to, catch fire, go out there and make 95%. If they just shot their season average from the free throw line, they win that game. So, it's definitely one that fell through the cracks, right? It's definitely one that they had in their grasp and it slipped through their fingers. And now you've put yourself in the ultimate backs against the wall situation. This Wake Forest game coming up tomorrow, it's a must win. But guess what? Clemson the next game, it's a must win. Syracuse the next game at home, it's a must win. Now it's I don't know, maybe freeing in that you just go out there and absolutely gun it. There's no reason, to use a football term, there's no reason not to call the fake punt. There's no reason not to call the flea flicker. There's no reason not to take a chance because nothing for those of you that love every time I talk to Graham, I use movie references. It's the replacements, right? There is no tomorrow for you people. And that makes you very dangerous people. Like if you don't win this game, the NCAA tournament becomes almost an impossibility. It might be an unlikelihood right now, but go for it, right? There is no reason not to go for it.
I'm glad you and I are coming into this conversation with the same mindset of this Wake Forest game absolutely has to be a must-win. I thought it was a must-win when they played in Raleigh in the start of January just because of the way the season was going, coming off that North Carolina loss.
Fist fought to get the win.
Yeah.
It felt urgent.
Now you're going to Winston-Salem, a place that NC State's kind of had trouble over the years. It's just, the law of the wolf, I guess you'd say. But also you're playing a Wake Forest team that, since losing to NC State, is 3-2. And I'd say
they're starting to blow people out.
That's what I was getting at. I'd say they're getting ready to, or they're playing their best stretch of basketball right now in these last 2 games against Syracuse and Georgia Tech, where they just absolutely mollywopped their opponents.
And I mean, if we're going to dive into the Wake Forest game, because actually I have a couple observations from the pick loss for NC State, but looking at the Wake Forest game, Wake Forest is the most hit or miss team in the league. They could show up and lose to a team they have no business losing to by 12, or they could show up and beat a team who's pretty solid and playing really good basketball, like the Georgia Tech game, by 30. So if I'm NC State, you got to be prepared for everything. You got to be prepared to go out there and play the Harlem Globetrotters. You got to be prepared to go out there and play the Generals, because you never know what you're going to get from Wake Forest. And regardless of what you do get from Wake Forest, you have to win that game.
In that first meeting, NC State was able to overcome a double-digit deficit to win that game. You can't go down by double digits in this game tomorrow, just because we're at a point now where I'm starting to see what I gave NC State praise for last week about how they never give up. They keep fighting to the very last whistle. It's at a point now where, like you said, when your players might not say this out loud, but when you're starting to see your window close a little bit of making the NCAA tournament, the sense of defeat can just overwhelm you. And if you go down by double digits, sometimes it might be hard to get that motivation back out of a timeout. But another reason why I say NC State can't go down by double digits is because that was their downfall in that Pitt game. And that's sort of what's been the downfall in their previous losses to Syracuse and to Virginia. They're just playing from behind too much.
With the way they've been shooting, which for most of the season has not been fantastic from the three-point line, and roughly, I think it was 30, almost exactly a third, 33% against Pitt, you're not built to come from behind. Right, if you have a couple, and DJ Horn might be this way. If you have a couple flamethrowers from three, then you can make up ground quickly. But when it's just DJ Horn shooting it well from three, and everybody else is kind of struggling, it's going to be very difficult to complete those comebacks. All right, I want to talk about the Pitt game, but first we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we dive into the minutia, and when I say minutia, I mean the 2-game winning streak, and last night. Or not last night, the Pitt game, had some very, very similar themes and some very, very different themes. And the difference stood out to me. So I'll tell you what they are coming up next right here on Pack Therapy. Pack Therapy back here, and NC State lost to Pitt, 67-64. It was I believe, a pretty hard to swallow loss, pretty brutal loss when it comes to ACC standings, ACC seeding for the tournament, and of course their NCAA tournament chances. This is what I saw. Okay, I saw trust from Kevin Keatts put in certain players who, for whatever reason, couldn't live up to it. Okay, I've been as big of an advocate of the four guys, Michael O'Connell, Jaden Taylor, Casey Morsell, and DJ Horn playing massive minutes, right? Playing massive minutes. I wanted Kevin Keatts to look at those four guys and trust them, and then that fifth spot in the lineup to be a hot hand between DJ Burns, Mo Diarra, Ben Middlebrooks. Against Pitt, the hot hand portion was taken care of by DJ Burns. Played a great game, right? 19 points, was rebounding well, was not a massive liability on defense, which we've seen at times. Passed the ball well, even though he only had one assist. I thought DJ Burns deserved his 21-22 minutes. Michael O'Connell, Jaden Taylor, Casey Morsell combined for 7 points. That's not going to get it done. And the only one that played significantly less minutes than we're used to them seeing over this little stretch was Jaden Taylor. Dennis Parker Jr. taking some of his minutes on the perimeter. But when you have Casey Morsell and Michael O'Connell playing 33, 34, 35 minutes and walking away with 7 points combined, that is misplaced trust. And I would have done it, right? I'm sitting here saying I would have made, if you call it a mistake, the same mistake Kevin Keatts made, because we had seen Michael O'Connell turn the ball over a couple times early in a game and then finishes the assist leader and make some big plays in the clutch. We had seen Casey Morsell either shoot his way through a rough shooting patch and make some clutch ones, and or just find other ways to impact the game if he's not shooting it well. We've seen these guys play through mistakes, and I think that was actually a positive development by Kevin Keatts as the season went along. He wasn't going to try to play 9 guys and get them all significant minutes. He was going to play 6, 7 guys and trust them if they're struggling to figure it out. The hard part about that, the mistake, if you will, is he was trusting them to figure it out, and they never did. They finished, Jaden Taylor 0 points, Michael O'Connell 2 points, and Casey Morsell 5. And if the guys that you put your trust in don't turn it around, it's going to be very, very tough for you to win a basketball game, even if it is Pitt, who might not be the scariest opponent in the ACC, but they have some guys that can go.
I've been saying this all along, and I'm not trying to single out any players before I say this. I'm only saying this because I know he has the potential. Casey Morsell you brought up.
Mm-hmm.
As a grad guard, it stood out to me that he didn't score his first points in that game until about 12 minutes left in the second half. When you've been playing college basketball this long, when you've been a part of this program, I want to see more from you. And I say that because, like you just mentioned, we've seen Casey Morsell shoot his way out of things.
Mm-hmm.
To me, for NC State to save their NCAA tournament hopes, they're going to need Casey Morsell to show his veteran role on this team. We're starting to see it come back from DJ Burns. I mean, as you just mentioned, DJ Burns, great game, 19 points, 5 rebounds. Casey Morsell needs to take his game to the next level to close out this season, not just for the hopes of making the NCAA tournament, but just to go on a high note in his college career.
And his legacy is intact. He's started a ton of games for State. He's been a guy that was crucial when it comes to the social dynamics of the team, right? You're going to bring in a whole bunch of transfers every year. You're going to need somebody there that's welcome, indoctrinating them into the way you do things. So I think his legacy is secure. But you're right. It's get to the free throw line. Right, Casey Morsell's a knockdown free throw shooter. Your team shoots 6 of 15, which is horrendous from the free throw line, and Casey Morsell doesn't even have an attempt. Right, force the issue, get to the line. There are things I would have almost demanded from a few of them, but what it comes down to is the DJs, DJ Burns and DJ Horn, can't win a game offensively by themselves. Right, it's you're going to need more players. You're going to need more, dynamic ability. And a lot of that is, quote unquote, supposed to come from someone like Casey Morsell or Dennis Parker Jr. when he gets a chance or Jaden Taylor kind of driving to the bucket. It doesn't take much to spur this team to something important. It's just it needed to be done.
Real quick, I just want to touch on what you mentioned about Casey Morsell. He's excelling at the foul line. He's made 67 free throws this year, and his shooting average from the charity stripe is 83%. So drive to the basket a little bit more, man. Draw in the contact. I mean, I know that he shot a season-high in three-point shooting last year, but this is the year where maybe you just get a little more physical going downhill and getting to the rim.
And by the way, let me back this whole thing up. Those three guys, I still believe you play in big minutes, right? DJ Horn is going to be DJ Horn, and when he gets it going, you are going to have a downtick in everyone else's production because, right, Casey Morsell catches an open three. One more pass gets it to an open three for DJ Horn. I want Casey Morsell doing that math in his head and going, hey, it's not my day, it's his. Yeah. Swing. DJ Horn knocks it down. He was 5 of 10 from 3. If someone's shooting 50% from 3, he didn't shoot enough threes, right? You keep shooting until that number comes down. So 10 attempts, I have no problem with it. You want them doing that math in their head. And I believe Casey Morsell sometimes just gets caught up in that. He's such a smart player. I guarantee, hopefully after a long career playing professional basketball, making a bunch of money, whether it's stateside or overseas or whatever ends up in his future, I think he's got a long career as a coach. There's something to be said for, I make this analogy all the time. The best players or the superstars, the all-stars are very rarely the best coaches. It's the guys who see the game a little bit differently. I almost think he sees it too much like a coach where he's always trying to make the right pass when sometimes I'm like, don't make the right pass, take the shot, right? Yeah. You put it on yourself. And I think there's a lot of that against Pitt. The fact of the matter is they played better than Pitt. That's the ugly truth about this game. They shot a better percentage. Let me make sure I get all of this right because I had it all in my notes. They forced more turnovers. They got out rebounded. That's probably going to be the place that gets them the most. But it's overall they played better than Pitt.
Made one more 3-pointer.
Thank you, DJ Horn. But it comes down to the margins, right? It comes down to missing the free throws. It comes down to the hustle points on rebounds. It comes down to a few of those things where, if you're not winning the little things, if you're not winning the details of the game, it's going to be hard to beat a team, again, even though it wasn't the biggest, scariest opponent in the ACC.
Blocking and tackling, right?
Blocking and tackling, right. I mean, I played football in college. There's it's actually very frustrating watching a basketball game because there's very few ways you can be like, we scored more points than they did, we made more touchdowns and field goals than they did, but we still lost the game. That's what happened, right? It's NC State shot a higher percentage from the field, shot a higher percentage from 3. They did the things that normally you say you win the game, but they didn't because of the extras, the points in the margins, the hustle points, the second chance points, all those sorts of things. And in basketball, you just have to cover your tracks on all of that. And, DJ Burns gets it going, right? Plays 21 minutes, has 19 points. Very little we can say to denigrate that performance. But everyone else on the floor has to know when DJ Burns is out there, he's not the rebounder or defender that Middlebrooks and Diarra are. So if he's out there because he's getting it going offensively and because he's bullying people in the post, perimeter has to rebound more, right? Perimeter has to drive to the bucket more. Perimeter has to do some things differently than they do when Diarra, and they have to defend better than they do when Diarra and Middlebrooks are out there. So it's an adjustment for everybody.
I'm trying to think, because you bring up DJ Burns and the accolades he brings when he's out on the floor. I'm trying to think, how often have we seen DJ Burns be used to set screen, like, high pick and roll screens? He
just doesn't do it as well as Diarra and Middlebrooks are better rollers, right? They're a little bit more agile. They're a little bit more quick-footed. So and also when you have DJ Burns, you want him in the post, right? You want him catching the ball as deep as he can and hitting that spin move and using the soft touch with the left hand. So you almost don't want to waste an offensive possession because he doesn't play big minutes for a bunch of reasons. One, because of his defense probably makes Kevin Keatts a little worried. But two, he's a big boy, right? Like some of it is just, you can't run 2-minute drill with 350-pound offensive linemen the whole time, and you can't ask DJ Burns to get up and down the floor too much. So if he's in there and you have an offensive possession, you want him to touch the ball in the post as much as you can. So you use him as a screener. Right? You can do that when the other guys are in. It's a very tough situation. I would have loved to have seen the win. They played the guys who I thought they should have played. They should probably stick with that same kind of blueprint of these four guys play a ton: O'Connell, Taylor, Horn, and Morcell. And you go with the hot-handed at the 5 spot. They probably should stay with that. But just know it is now. You might have to win them all to make the NCAA tournament.
Or at least 1 out of 7. 2 out of 8.
The games remaining are Wake, Clemson, both on the road, Syracuse, Boston College at home, Florida State, UNC on the road, Duke at home, Pitt, a rematch on the road. Winning them all probably gets you in. You definitely need to go 1-2 against Duke. Duke and UNC. You need the top 10, top 15, whatever they are at the time, top 5 victory. And the other one, you better not get blown out. Keep it within 5. Like this is now, you start looking at the net rankings, the quad rankings, you start looking at the bracketologists. You have to force their hand. You have to go out and do something dramatic to win them back over because they're not on your side.
I know we're about maybe 2 weeks away from these 2 games, but these 2 games for some reason are sticking out to me when I look at the schedule. Boston College at home, just because you played them once already in that kind of weird stretch that we always see where, you play one ACC game, then go back to non-conference, and then come back to ACC. You beat them on the road, but it was in overtime. Boston College, I think, season's looking a little glim. So to me, that's a game where when you play them at home, like that's where you take all your frustration out and you have your best shooting performance. I know that's asking a lot, but to me, that just kind of feels like that needs to be the mood of that game. And then the game on the road at Florida State, Tuesday night, 9 p.m. tip. You're on ESPN, and the size of Florida State just concerns me in that matchup.
For us, everything you just said is true. For them, it's a 1-game season. I think you could do it this way almost. The NCAA tournament for NC State starts tomorrow at Wake, right? You win. You survive in advance, right? You survive in advance. You win, you get to play the next one. You win, you get to play the next one. You win, you get to play the next one. It's almost a win or go home mentality. So certain teams react really well to that, right? And State has seen a few of them over their history. Certain teams react well to the stakes being as high as they possibly could be. So that's where we'll leave it. We'll be back next week with more of Pack Therapy. I'm Tim Donnelly. That's Graham Hill. Please like, subscribe, pass it along to all your friends. Find it on our YouTube page if you haven't done so already. Have a great week, everybody.